Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Quapis, and I'm with Snowflake, and we're a new sponsor this year for the WIT conference. We're glad to be here, and I have the pleasure of introducing the speaker for this session, Chris James. And Chris has been in the data management field for about 13 years. He is the lead data architect for Duo Security in Ann Arbor that was recently acquired by Cisco. He is a avid mountain biker, hiker, adventurist, and in his spare time, he's built a data warehouse from scratch in the cloud, and he's here to talk to you about that journey. So Chris, here you go.
Alrighty, thank you. I like that idea. In my spare time, I do that, because in my really focused time, I'm out having fun. So as much fun as everything else I have in my life, and I can talk for hours about it, I really start getting geeked out and fun and have a lot of fun when I start talking about the tools that I'm using, just because of how different it's made my role in my job. So when they came and asked me to talk today, I was like, well, what do we do different than everybody else? We're data warehousing. We're collecting the data, we're putting it in place, giving it to people, going down our own data adventure. But I think our approach and where we got to start from was different, and it kind of led us down to some different realizations. So we'll take a look. So this is giving BI a fresh start. Start off with, we're Duo Security. How many people in the room use Duo Security? Duo Mobile? Yes, we love you guys. Yep, so we started out in the industry in multi-factor authentication on your phone. We made it completely seamless, as easy as possible to implement, and you really can go from, hey, I have something unsecured to fully secured and enforceable within 20, 30 minutes, and you can roll that out to hundreds of thousands of users within a day if you want. So you can go from zero protection to fully protected within that day, and the value back on it is absolutely amazing. And I didn't believe Duo when I was going for the job that they told me about it. So I went and I put it on my server and I said, whoa, it works. I'll take the job. So we started on Snowflake about 2 years ago with our data warehouse. And all started, our CIO at the time just said, we need a data warehouse to our management team. And they said, no, we don't. And he said, you're right, but we will. And so he was right. And so you go down this road the same reason everybody does. You got 30, 40 thousand different applications running at a time. I think that's about right. And they all have their own reporting application. They all have their own data layer. We're going through rapid growth. We're doubling size as a company and value, and the number of SaaS products we're using every year at Duo. So trying to bring that together to get cohesive answers wasn't easy, and it wasn't fun. So our entire company ran off of Google Sheets, just like everyone else. And we want to be able to tell that story, keep that going, and also keep keep new people coming in at the rate we're hiring, 30 to 40 people in a hiring class. Hey, here's all the different applications you have to use. Point them in one place to get your data. So our requirements were really kind of typical and boring. It's got to be agile and scalable, and it's got to be, customizable. It's all same thing. The one thing we are is cloud only and SaaS preferred. So we don't own any servers. So we don't want to have to maintain any servers. And then my personal requirements, I did not want a tool that come in and said, just point all your data sources at our tool, and magically you'll get analytics and everybody's happy at the back end. Because nobody's happy and nothing's magic and nobody wins. And then I look like an idiot for picking this tool that everybody has to live with now. But simplify everything else. I got brought on to do a data warehouse, and they said, great, you're a team of one. Take care of all this stuff. And I'm like, well, how many admins are we having, and what's our uptime, and what's our SLAs on all of these things? I'm not, I live at the mountain bike trail. I don't want to be bothered with downtime and issues, with this stuff while I'm out there. So long story short, Snowflake Won, but there was a lot of reasons for it. First off, it is fully SaaS. Not only is it in the cloud, which is the great word, which just means somebody else's computers, but it's fully managed. If there's downtime, I don't have to do anything about it. Frankly, there's nothing I can do about it, and it just fixes itself. And that downtime doesn't really exist. I mean, my warehouses are up and running. If they're telling me that I get an alert that, hey, provisioning in this Amazon region where it's running is going slow, I just flip a button and keep my warehouses running and no more provisioning issues. It was really neat to see this separation of compute and processing resources, which are called the warehouses in there. So the neat thing about that was I can give 60 different consumers in my company access to the same data, and I can give them that data and say, you will never be competing for resources. You will never see a table lock because somebody else is using that. And you are guaranteed this level of service and performance based on that at all times. And we can control it. You want more performance? I'll give you more performance. That's it, it's done. And before we went through all this process, just like everything else, I thought, this is marketing. Just like everything else is all marketing. This is what everybody says in the sales pitch, and they get going with it. And after 2 years, they've outperformed what their marketing is. So this was kind of our setup, not just of what a data warehouse versus Snowflake brought to the table, but what made them different from a cloud warehouse as being fully SaaS is, this is fully managed. Like I said, I spend less than 15 minutes a month doing administration on this warehouse, and I'm the only one doing it. And that's only because I kind of want to, because I'm a geek and I like to see what's going on in there, and it takes care of itself. The built-in tools that are built into this, I don't need to have external monitoring software. I don't need to have separate application running, my access rights or provisioning for new databases. And it is built for the cloud. This is not recycled code. This wasn't a desktop application. You're not able to say, you know what, I'd like to run this on my servers. It's not an option. It runs out there on the cloud. It's built for that, and it does that perfectly to a T. And against everybody else, either it's installed or say we deploy everywhere. It was neat, and it's been different. So that's kind of where, kind of things that separated it out. And I really do mean administration free. This is normally if you're looking at a command line interface trying to see performance load usage, or you're trying to see exactly what the usage or how much things are costing me, they've got the dashboards and things built in right there. You click on the button and, oh, sweet, this data warehouse cost me, each warehouse by every process, I know what it cost me every month. And I know exactly, if something's hitting a threshold, I need to give it more performance, click the button, it's done. So this was kind of my personal favorites, and this is all, post-shopping, and again, this is 2 years after. This isn't just, hey, we bought this thing last week and it's up and running. This is still how I feel today. So it really is the It Just Works data warehouse that takes that management out of your hair. And then with that, there's things like time travel and other things that we don't have to have log rotation strategies. I don't have to have a backup strategy and a data warehouse. I don't bother. Indexes, memory usage, it's all stuff that seems archaic now. So cool, we have this place to put a bunch of data. You should probably make it do something useful and get some value out of that. So got to go ETL Shopping TIME, which is everybody's favorite. And we used a couple different tools as time's gone on, trying to figure out what's the best way to scale this out, roll our own with scripts. Are we using an on-prem solution or something else? And it took some time for us to get there. It took about a year to settle on something. We had some other solutions in place at the time. But we ran into a tool just over a year ago that got released called Matillion. And the thing that got me with Matillion is the same thing with Snowflake. It is purpose-built for exactly what it does. It is an ETL tool that is designed for cloud data warehouses only. So it is designed to automate and do all of that stuff with the cloud. Everything that it does, you don't have to learn Java to do ETL anymore, because we all speak SQL. So that's all your transformation has done. Those compute resources already exist on your Snowflake warehouse. Use those resources. You've got a ton of compute resources, and if you need more, just click a button. So, so that was a nice thing. And having it be in SQL, speaking the language that we all speak in the data world, made it really intuitive. The debugging, the seeing those things was amazing. So quick example, I'm not going to get into here's how we manage our data and do this down the adventure. because we're all kind of in our different adventures and we all know how it all works. But this was kind of a thing where we had our recruiting team that was desperate to get more data, to the point where they were willing to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more for another service, or to pay somebody else as a service to come in and do that. So once we had Matillion in place, I said, okay, we'll point this at the API for that, start collecting that data. Within probably about 2 days, we were collecting that data. By the end of about a week and a half, we started being able to say, delivering their facts and dimensions and delivering that out to them. So this was the kind of thing where they immediately got value out of that, from having that data, being able to look at that data and not just say, okay, good, the application's telling me that, what the application's telling me. We can put it in our own language and do exactly what we want with the data. And remembering that everything that we do is all SaaS. So our recruiting platform, somebody else's computer sitting out there, we don't have control over it. Same thing with our sales, our marketing, our finance, accounting, expenses, all of these things, our HR. So that extra little bit of trouble of saying, oh great, how do we get our data that's held by this company over here? Bring it all in. You have access to it, and this made it extremely flexible and extremely fast to develop in. So this is just kind of how our data model flows, typically depending on the system. In this case, we had a system that was able to just do nightly drops of dump files into S3. So we did that off of S3. You can either do this with Snowpipe as well, which is a neat, fun tool to play with as well. But with Matillion, we just had it set whenever a file shows up in this folder, it auto-triggers the job to consume it. So I don't have to worry about what time it gets there. If it's there 3 hours late and I wasn't ready, it's taken care of. And then we use Matillion for that modeling, throw it up to Snowflake, push it out to the BI application, and then boom, users are happy. By the time they get in the morning, they're happy to go. But the nice thing about that is what that allows us to do on the other side going forward. And just one example, these kind of feedback loops and cycles we do all the time throughout the business. And the nice thing is you don't have to wait for the end of a cycle. Every day is a feedback cycle on what we're seeing here. So we look at our sales forecast, rapidly growing company. When your CFO is coming at you and saying, great job, everybody. We want to double your sales next year. That means every quarter is going to be larger, not the previous one, and then double what it was the previous year. So looking at, okay, we're going to take in, an extra, $19 million in revenue in addition this next quarter. Okay, that's $19 million that we have to service from a support standpoint. So we need to make sure that we have that support in place. Our customer service is well known, and we don't want to lose that reputation. So how many people do we need to do that? Well, let's look at how much time it takes to satisfy, how many calls do we get? How many emails do we get? How much live chat do we get for every $1 million we sell in new business? We're selling expansions and bringing that in. So let's service it. Make sure we keep that quality up. Well, you keep the quality up, the volume goes up, that's a people scaling problem. And obviously, if you say you need, 6 new support personnel in a certain area tomorrow, you've already missed it because it's going to take 6 weeks to get them in. So now having that recruiting data, we know exactly how long it takes to do that hiring. We know that we expect within this quarter that we need 6 new support personnel to be able to do that. It's really simple. You do the math backwards and let everybody plan. And then when we're monitoring that threshold of support volume per person, as we know that's getting up, we know we need to either we succeeded or we didn't succeed on that hiring plan to go from there. And it's the same thing with sales, marketing, finance to be able to take care of those. So, right now it's, a little predictive operational data, but it works. And the nice thing about it is we can iterate and go through this stuff really quickly. So when we talked about scalability at the beginning and as one of those requirements, it really was we need to look at everything that'll manage us going from startup to enterprise. This time last year, everybody in our company was saying, sweet, in 18 months we're going IPO. That's it, we're doing it. And luckily, thankfully, Cisco came in and gave us a whole lot of money at the end of last year. Yes. So we liked that. But we needed to do this. We needed to have an application in place for the data warehouse that could go from startup mode, from we barely have over 200 people, to where you have over 1,000. We needed a tool to help bridge the gap. When you have 80 customers, you can use QuickBooks as your ERP system. That's fine. Collect the money. It's not a problem. When you're managing 15,000 customers and letting them self-service and go all over the place, you need to have bigger tools in place to manage that. And we need to have a way to bridge that data gap across there. We want to make sure that we were measuring the same thing in QuickBooks that we were managing when we got to whatever the enterprise suite that we're about to use. So in doing so, you got to make sure that you're not just letting the business tell you, I don't care what QuickBooks is doing, it's just doing stuff with money. I want to take the data out of that and find out what the business is doing. So that's where that scalability really came in, and it had to be there. I did not want our data warehouse to be the next application that we were replacing because we outgrew it. Because, gosh, that would drive me nuts. So that would be the bigger project than any of the other ones. So when we looked at that scaling and said, okay, not just from on-prem, but let's say your traditional hardware, even if it was licensing number of servers on AWS or something else, a deploy anywhere solution, we really came into these things where the problem's on the left, your solution's on the right. And almost all of those solutions have a financial cost involved. They have a delay involved. They end up with a resource constraint in some way to do that. I mean, there's no such thing as an on-prem solution that is going to perfectly scale. The second that you spend, $200,000 to $400,000 on servers, now you have depreciating assets in place. You have to pay to power them, whether they're being used or not. I can't tell you how many places I've worked where, great, we provisioned a new bank of servers, and it'll be 2 to 4 months before those are even providing value. And you're paying to power them up. You're paying for the rack space, the network installation, and everything on those. So when we looked at what we could do and how this scaled for us with Snowflake, it was neat. So determining your Mac hardware needs to find out, what you're going to need. System requirements, didn't need to do that. Choose your product, trying to choose your products and what your stack was going to look like, and do that. Just, you got your Snowflake credits. That was it. That's your processing for everything that you need to do because it's powerful, it's fast, and it scales. The initial startup and configuration, we started and they said, okay, great, thanks for signing up, doing a trial. We're going to provision an account for you. You bought X number of credits for us, which I'll talk openly about later. And cool. So we got these credits, start using it, it's up and ready. That's it. It was done. Now getting data there to start with, we ended up buying a tool that just started piping some data in there so we could get some value out. But we were able to do that within the first week. We went from we don't have a data warehouse to we're providing data to people within a week. And the nice thing about that, when they do per second billing on your credits. So a credit is one processor of compute resources per hour. But they start capping that, and you can set these warehouses to turn on and turn off. So they turn on when a query comes in, then you can have a 10-second timeout to anywhere from a 2-hour timeout. And it goes to sleep, and it doesn't cost you anything. So on Saturday, when nobody's doing anything, data warehouse doesn't cost us anything. On Monday, when everybody's scrambling for data, we up the resources, consume away, goes to bed at night, everybody's happy. So that, depending on that resource, on what you negotiate for your credit cost at $2 to $2.50 a credit, depending on the level of service and things that you want. But it is so economically responsible, it's insane. I'm spending less on my data warehouse compute resources, which now is doing all of my ETL work as well, than I would just in licensing and any other data warehouse product I can find. Just in licensing. So no matter what, you have your on-prem thing, you're still paying that licensing cost. I can just do this. And the second that I outgrow the number of credits I have, I'm just going to call Jen and I'll be like, hey, I need some more of those credits you got. And she'll say, okay, write up an order. And it's not even a matter of scaling. I don't have to wait for anything. I'm just going. I up the size of my warehouses, number of warehouses, and it's good to go. So it is truly the click of a button, solution that you get with it. And with Matillion, it was the same way. I said, hey, I've got three more developers coming on. What do you guys recommend for my instance size? They said, we think you should upgrade. I said, okay. Upgrade my size, boom. And then, 2 days later, I think we got around to clicking the button and we were done. And we could self-service through that. So no need for those issues. is what really kind of got me about when they asked me to come talk about this is that I've got another dozen SaaS products or SaaS tools that we use throughout our company, and I'm not here talking about any of them. There are ones that I would throw away in a heartbeat. My favorite thing that comes up is I may open up a support question saying, your product doesn't do this and we really need it to. And I've gotten the answer back saying, yeah, we hear that from all of our customers. I mean, then why do you have customers? You know, I certainly don't want to be one right now. Oh, well, here, come talk to our professional services side of the house. You know, for a couple $100,000, we can make that work. Don't worry, we've done this for everybody. Put it in your product, and I'll be happy to pay you. You do that, and I'll put your icon right up here with us. That's it, end of story. So that's how that works. But the idea, like, for the Duo users that are here, like I said, we love you, and you know, our slogan is just the most loved company in security, and that's how we want to be. There's no reason that a service provider shouldn't be like that. And Snowflake and Matillion, they stand out as well. When I ask them for help, it's not just, oh, okay, well, wait, you know, it's not the waiting game. It's not we'll try to get back to you. It's, yeah, well, what do you need? Let's sit down. I've had a question about Matillion and said, well, that's a tricky one. I'm going to get the CIO, and I'll call for you tomorrow. Okay, and that was amazing, you know, to get that level of support through there. So, where are we on time? We're doing good. So this was the kind of thing that was a giant leap forward for data warehousing. As I look back from the different products and different places I've used in other spots, it's not just the products, it's how you get to architect. I don't have to worry about all these admin things, all of these other things. I can actually just develop. I can bring a developer on, start their accounts. Actually, I brought a new developer on Monday, and we're hiring another one. Anybody in the room? So we brought a data warehouse developer on Monday. By the end of the day, not only did she get into her accounts and all those things done, I had her out starting on her first task. I was going through strategic data models and actually showing her in person. I had another version of her environment to work in, and she was off working. By the end of day Tuesday, she had already had stuff ready to commit, go into production. So this Friday when we release, her first code in a day. And it wasn't that I was asking her to do something overly complicated. I wanted her to get her hands on the tools, and I wanted her to do something that, frankly, I didn't have time to do. And she was able to independently go in and do that, never using Snowflake a day in her life, never using Matillion a day in her life. So that's where that difference can be made. So now we can not just the tools are being more effective, more efficient, but it makes your people more efficient throughout the whole process. And I mean, you know, we talk about saving money on your warehouse cost. The price of your hardware comes nothing close to the price of all the people to work on it. So you can get more for your money, you can get more for your effort, and you can be more effective with everything that we do in there. So I do want to spend some time and open it up for some Q&A, just because normally we get a little bit of those, and I don't want to run out of time on this and then feel like I'm trying to catch up with people in the hallway. I am glad you mentioned that. Jen, what's your favorite security provider? So the nice thing is there are security policies that you can enforce, IP and domain restrictions to get in there. You can selectively apply those policies to individual roles and users. But then the nice thing is you go under user preference, there is a enable MFA button. And just like everything else with Duo Security, you hold your phone up to it, and boom, you're enrolled. Duo Security is enforced on that account. Done. I tell everybody to do. I will provision somebody an account, and I will always tell them by end of day, if it's not MFA enabled, I'm disabling it. And that happened to my director, and she was not happy. But that was my rule. Any other questions? So for magnitude of data is not overly huge right now. Mainly this is an enterprise data warehouse. We're looking at sales, marketing, leads from there. So we're talking, I think our largest dimensions are billion row kind of things from polling data. even with those right there, we're able to clone, rebuild, and we actually rebuild all of our fact tables on every run. And it's usually in the magnitude 1.5 minutes on a medium-sized warehouse. The beautiful thing about that is if it's data size that's really coming into play, is that it scales extremely well. You up the size of your warehouse, boom, takes half as much time. And the nice thing is when that job's done, you just change it to your warehouses to scale down. You can up the clusters on them, and it works really well. The other nice thing about that I forgot to mention in there was how many people in the room are Hadoop people? How many Hadoops? Okay. How many people do we have in the room that are SQL people? Yes. So this was an interesting thing. I always liked Hadoop when it came out and was really interested and started learning on that. But it's also really hard to hire people to work on your Hadoop cluster that know what they're doing. The nice thing about this is Snowflake created everything from scratch. No recycled code. They rewrote SQL from scratch, but it all is exactly what you think it should be. It's completely new, it operates differently, and it feels so familiar. You get started, and sweet, I speak SQL. The documentation is extremely user-friendly, upfront, easy to get to. And I actually was telling the sales engineer and support team outside, I said, I feel bad I've never talked to you, but I just don't have problems. So like I did, I apologize for not getting to know them better. So, any other questions? Yes? Yes, you can natively load JSON, XML, Parquet, I'm missing some other CSVs. You can actually load all of that into individual tables. So we do that a lot with our recruiting system, but that just all stays in JSON data, and I don't even bother transforming it. I just dump it in there in JSON, and then I create views off of that parse the JSON, so then to everything else downstream, it looks like table data. So it becomes that simple to do. And we do that model all over the place. It's from all of our financial data that comes out. The thing that really got me is we have a lot of these systems that will generate like, oh good, we deliver you CSVs every day. And that's really great to parse those out until they change it, because it's a SaaS company and you don't get to control what they're doing today. So now that format changes, your CSV parsing breaks and everything dies. So the second I get any file in CSV, I actually just drop down to a Python script within Matillion, convert it to JSON, bring it on in. Any other questions? Where are we at? All right, I think I missed my prime time on a lot. So I guess there's no other questions. People feel free to come up and talk to me if you really do have any other questions. Otherwise, I'll give people some time back and get going.